Welcome to Decoding Growth, the podcast that dives into bold ideas, strategic insights, and unfiltered conversations reshaping fintech, retirement, wealth, and workplace benefits. Together, we'll cut through the noise and uncover the signals driving next-generation innovation. And now, here's your host, Will Prest.
Hey, I'm Will Prest, and I've spent 25 years building growth platforms inside Fortune 500s and advising fintech startups from zero to scale. I've led enterprise sales, run marketing, and trained hundreds and hundreds of advisors and helped launch more than a few key platforms along the way. What I've learned is this: growth doesn't come from theory, it comes from execution, figuring out what really works in a complex ecosystem like retirement, wealth, and insurance. This show is for operators, founders, and execs who are trying to make real change. Whether you're inside a legacy institution or building the next category challenger, we'll talk shop with people doing the work, pressure-tested ideas, and decode how growth actually happens inside our space. Before we dive in, I'm really excited to welcome today's guest, David Levine. David is a lawyer by trade, is the founder of PlanPort, bringing his lifetime of experience with technology and his well-known understanding of both the legal and operational challenges facing retirement services providers. He developed PlanPort to be used as a tool to assist and work with existing teams that have to work with complex provisions included in plan documents across the retirement industry. In his separate day job, David is a principal at Groom Law Group, chartered the largest employee benefits law firm in the United States. At Groom, he and his colleagues have been involved in all aspects of the retirement ecosystem for over 50 years. They continue to innovate with creative solutions, including using AI and other innovative solutions to provide creative and practical legal solutions for their clients. No Groom or Groom client information or resources of any kind are used in PlanPort, and PlanPort does not provide legal advice of any kind. Dave and I go way back, more than a decade, starting with our time with Bill Faldmar's retirement think tank. He brings deep ERISA experience into the real world and the fintech world and innovation. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Will. It's great to be here. And thank you for reading my long disclaimer. You can tell my lawyer roots stick with me no matter where I go.
It's kind of fun. I grew up with lawyers, so I get it. I understand it. And I'd like to start with sort of what's your founding story? Because you have such a great career. I've seen you in so many conferences talking about ERISA and how to apply it and such. But how did PlanPort start?
Well, I like to say some people like to play golf. I am not good at golf, is the very honest answer. And if you go back in time, as a child, I was really a computer kid, not like the modern version, but back in the days of dial-up modems and your old Apple IIs and Commodore 64s, like computers that probably tons of people don't even remember anymore. And I grew up as a programmer kid. That's who I was as a child, and I enjoyed it. As I grew up, I sort of diversified out. I went to law school. I went to all these different types of items. But this area has been always part of me. It's something I love. I use it in my separate legal career at times, just as good for like things like legal research. But what really happened is when I was thinking of things, I was like, there's a need here, but it's not legal. And and I see sort of challenges in the industry. Our industry is one that, how do I describe it? Ours is a people-driven industry, and people matter. Even though I'm sitting here with a tech company that uses AI as a resource in there, I'm the first to say people really matter. That's how our industry works. It's what lubricates and greases the skids to make everything work and be good for participants and beneficiaries and employers. But I also realize that we're in a world where everybody's trying to be faster, more efficient, be able to do more with less, because people want to maximize the value of retirement and do well by folks. So the way that PlanPort came about is it was literally right at the beginning of 2024. And I'm thinking to myself, and I thought about this a little before, but I really dove in then. Plan documents are challenging. They're hard. They're hard to read. And yes, most people use pre-approved documents, but there are so many flavors of them. You could say you're buying from vendor X, but we've all seen so many to talk like computer programming, forked versions with little tweaks, modifications. And at the same time, I had been doing some personal playing and work with AI and sort of pulling out my old programming background. And I thought to myself, I think there's a use case here. And that's kind of what started down the road. It started with an idea and sort of a vision of, could we do this? And that's what started me in. For the first couple of months, I brainstormed, then started reaching out to bringing personnel in and folks that I've known who have industry experience on the technology or on the subject matter side. And we sort of went from there. And there have been some great moments in this, and it's a constant learning experience, but that's what kind of got me into it.
So what's really interesting is I know you as being first, just one of the foremost ERISA experts. And now it seems like you've kind of combined your incredible deep knowledge of ERISA, but then into this practical tool. So as you think about putting those together, what were the biggest problems or pressures that are facing the different service providers as it relates to what you know and where PlanPort is creating value?
Sure. Well, there's a couple things that to me are very important. We all have heard about company X or Y coming in and saying they're going to disrupt industry A, B, or C. The retirement industry, I already started out, is about people. And it's one about partnerships. I often say it is a competition, frenemies, however you'd like to call it at different times. People who one day are competing tooth and nail to win that one client, whatever that client is. The next day they're collaborating on a solution or they're providing pieces to work together. And sometimes they're doing both at once. And one of the challenges that I saw here is I already mentioned the economic angle, that there's always economic pressure and people are trying to do better, more efficiently. Also, there's a whole interest in being able to work with data. And there's an interest in how do you work with your customers, your clients, participants, beneficiaries, whoever they are. And how do you get that into a form that's optimized for you? And most importantly, in an accurate way, because that's one of the big challenges out there. Nobody is perfect. When I was in law school, there was a case I read in a case book, and I did take a class on ERISA, which I guess makes me really, really geeky. But I took a law school class, and in that case, it was a malpractice case, things lawyers live in dread of. And their court, and I'm simplifying this, I'm the first to admit it, basically said, yeah, you made a mistake, but ERISA is so hard that people make mistakes, and you can't be held liable for malpractice for that. And the reason why I actually went with that example here is it's because it's hard. So there are fewer folks in the industry than there used to be. The skill set it takes to dissect documents, analyze, bring things together, it's a real skill set. And I'm the first to say PlanPort is designed to be almost like a wingman in that. It's not supposed to be a full replacement for people. Your subject matter experts matter, no pun intended. They really are important. And I have the greatest of respect for them. But I also believe technology can be an assistant. The example I give when I'm talking to people all the time is we all use a map program, Google Maps, Apple Maps, Waze, you name it. And when you use those solutions, one of the things is you don't automatically just assume that Waze will always be right. We could talk self-driving cars another time. But sure. The thing is, I remember being in Europe and following Waze, and it wanted me to drive down a set of stairs. And I'm not in the movie The Italian Job here when I'm doing this. So the point being is humans matter. So I see this solves the time, the resource availability. It also provides a good fail-safe check, another way to get the data in a good spot, just to make things easier, faster, better, and supplement the human knowledge, but also fit into the ecosystem. It solves another issue because the development time, sure, everybody says AI is easy. I believe AI is a technological solution. And unless you're OpenAI, or unless you're like Google or Anthropic, you're not. AI is not a business model. AI is a tool. I can tell you for what we do, 80% of what we do is real programming with our team. 80% of it is old school. AI plays a role, But without the knowledge and the substance, that's the thing. And that's where the disconnect comes up a lot for me. And as a result, that's what we try to solve. Because I've talked to people who are like, oh, I could go build this. And I'm like, yes, you could. It would take a lot of time and a lot of energy because each plan is different. How do you deal with all the millions of variants? Yes. But the difference is we try to be a narrow niche so that we're not trying to replace anybody. We're trying to be a supplement, which is why we partner and collaborate with people as well, where we can be the engine inside.
Right.
That was a long-winded answer. I apologize.
That's okay. I think I have 3 follow-up questions to that.
Sure.
I'll start in order. One is, from when you created the concept in your mind to now you've been in the market for a while, what is the big surprise as your different service providers, whether it's TPAs, large record keepers, advisor groups? You have a range of clients right now, but what surprised you about how they were using it and how it brought value to them?
Sure. What surprised me is our core original concept was really focused on record keepers and TPAs. And it was originally on the basics of translation, getting from vendor A to vendor B document system, taking an individually designed, moving it to your paper. And what's been fascinating and surprising is just the dramatic number of use case enhancements. And one of the things I'll say is about our customers, I can't say thank you enough to them, because a lot of our time now is spent, my team, we actually talk with our customers. We love their feedback and we learn new things from them every day. So the surprise was, hey, one of the great examples I'll give is we hadn't planned on individually designed documents, the not off the shelf ones that are there. And this is my wonky. And people are like, we're just going to try that. And literally some customers just did it. And for a little while, and we still have moments now where they got ahead of us. They're like, yeah, this works. I'm like, great. That was one of the surprises. Another one of the surprises is how people want to use the data and whether they want to integrate us into a bigger solution as a partnership, or if you're a TPA, record keeper, or other service provider, you want to get the data in a specific way. One of the surprises for us was, hey, here's another use, like completely different, like participant education or other types of things that came in mind. We had ideas, but we keep seeing new evolutions on these. And admittedly, some folks have some great proprietary ideas, which I won't share because we signed NDAs, but at the same time, that use, the individual level, the M&A level has also been a fascinating use. There's a whole bunch of other just purposes that people are using it for that go way beyond just the pure basics of switch from record keeper A to record keeper B or TPA A to TPA B.
Right. Hey, for those of the audience listening that doesn't know PlanPort, can you give like a 30-second answer to what does it do and how do your different clients use it so they're just clear as they think about your use cases?
Sure. If you've ever watched the TV show Silicon Valley, I liken us to being great middleware. We get you from A to B. Our job, what we do is we can read any plan document. We have other features and things we're adding as we go rapidly at this point. And it can be 401k, 403b, pension, 457b, DB, cash balance. We take it, we can read that and all the documents, the amendments, the SPDs, you name it. It's kind of like you can throw it in the blender and our system can read it. And that's one of the things I love. It's universal. It brings it in, it then can translate it into basically a master set of core data elements that numbers in the hundreds now. It actually shows you, because anybody who says just trust technology, our accuracy is so good that some people do just trust it.
And it's going to be my second question, so let's just use that as a jumping off point, because that was a great snippet. Can you then talk a little bit more about accuracy? And here's why I ask. Our team does a lot with firms that have AI within it or rely on AI a lot. But generally, AI is probabilistic. So it'll give you a great answer, but it might not always be the same. So what I found is interesting is you're the only company that even talks about sort of accuracy. Most talk about getting great answers or getting efficiency or the like, but no one's really talking about accuracy. I would think in ERISA and the way, counsel like you would think, accuracy is very important.
It is. Accuracy is at the center of what we do. And this weaves right into what I was explaining, because we'll show you where we found everything, even if it's in multiple places. Just to finish the story, I'll weave that right in a second. What we'll do is we then export. You can export in a million different ways. We have APIs. You can do bulk. You can do all those things. We have comparison tools. We have comparisons against what I call sources of truth. If you want to compare against something else to see what the changes are. Like there's a million different little tools and features, like sending it out to document systems. If you want to go straight, we've got that now. There's all these different pieces. Accuracy, though, is something we're most proud of. AI, you're right, is all about probabilities. That's the simplified version of it all. And we realized from the get-go, you couldn't have a solution that was valuable in our community without focusing on accuracy. And we spend, even as we add features and improvements, especially in response to customers, we focus on that. Like recently, when we've been running our tests, we are often 95 to 100% accurate in plans. We're not always perfect, and we own that. And when we talk to our customers, we really focus on that. But if you also look at humans, there are some amazing document reviewers out there. But nobody is perfect. I'm not perfect if I do it myself manually. And nobody is perfect.
And I can tell you, having run marketing and sales in a couple of very large DC businesses, they every compliance director that reviews is different. There's a lot of inconsistency around their opinion of what works and what's good for the firm and what's not good for the firm. So I would think a tool like this would be setting a standard that would make it easier for everybody. Just like in pro tennis, now that they have line calling, it's not really an issue. Electronic line calling solved the debate.
Well, and it's interesting. I both agree and disagree with you on that. It's fascinating.
Both sides.
I agree with you. We believe we've come up with a good mousetrap, and we've created things that can translate data and get it any way, any form you want. Like some of our customers are using some of our tools that we've been introducing, we've been having walkthroughs with a bunch of customers with a whole bunch of new features recently. But the reason I say that is I agree it's nice to have standardization, but data comes in so many forms and people want to use it in so many ways. So this is where my disagreement comes in. So often, as someone who's been in this industry, not 30 years, but getting closer by the day, one of the things that I see is that sometimes people will come in and say, this is how we've built the new mousetrap and you must do it our way. And there are different business models. Some are like, we have a narrow box. Some of them, we have a hyper flexible box. Because we are that connectivity from A to B, and you can stay in our ecosystem for a bunch of stuff, as I was describing pieces of it, or you can take the data and go. We're not holding you hostage. It's no walled garden to sound like AOL from 25 years ago. Right. So one of the things we've spent a ton of time on is, yes, we focus on consistency of output, consistency of analysis. We're constantly working on it. We have technical folks who know the area, but we also have technical programmer folks who come from the industry. But one of the things that I think is essential is recognizing people want that data and use it differently. Each different document system works differently. Each different record keeper's administration systems work differently. Each different onboard, like there's so many different ways that a TPA record keeper, an advisor, or other service provider uses data. A wealth management advisor uses it completely differently. Right. And the key is, so we try to create consistency of output, and that's a huge focus for ours. But one of the things where I slightly disagree with you is, I think it's important about meeting people where they want to be, rather than bringing a product. And I'm not saying you were implying that, but not bringing a product that just says, here it is, it goes from A to B to C. I've kind of really focused with our team on making this a choose your own adventure. If you want to if you want to use our system for A, B, and C, we have these tools. But if you don't, you don't. If you want this data this way, we'll give it to you that way. That's not AI. That's a lot of programming and a lot of things that's very unique, and it leverages AI in spots, but it also takes understanding how people work to do things. So that's why I agree with it on consistency, but also think there should be flexibility.
That is really interesting, because especially when we're working with new ventures to help them either really connect into the enterprise they've got a contract with, or just be enterprise ready to go get contracts. everybody's a snowflake. So the new ventures have a tough time dealing with the different ways that work, the different SOPs and such. So you kind of answered that question for me, which is you have this flexible platform that really meets them where they are and can ingest whatever data from whatever system. Is that right?
That's right. And also how it goes out. We don't give you one path out. We give multiple paths out because we recognize, you're right. I think you say it so well. You meet people where they are. And that's not a negative. It's you're not going, a TPA who's run their business for 30 years, a record keeper who is huge. It is irrational for me to expect them to rewrite their world for us. My job is to make it like a USB plug. They can plug in and take what they need and not have to worry. There's all these other important things like security and data protection and all those things. We spend a ton of time on that. Like it's always fun when you have to run pen testing and make sure everything's okay, but that's part of good security hygiene. And to me, that's also another disconnect that people I think run into. If you are running a startup and you are trying to play with established industry organizations, you actually need to think about this and actually have, and not just be, oh, we're judgment proof. No, I've thought about everything from insurance to security to backups and all those other things, because that's, and redundancies. When AWS went down, Amazon Web Services, that a lot of the industry uses, a lot of the web software is based on it, or Microsoft Azure could go down, Google Cloud occasionally goes down. We're not immune, but to me, if you're building software, you've got to build redundancies. You could go down, but the trick is to try to build a solution that's enterprise grade and not just, hey, one guy in a truck.
Right. You started to talk about use cases, but I want to go a little bit deeper if you're willing to, without sharing trade secrets, because I think there's at least 3 different kinds of uses, and you can pick whichever. So, like, let's talk about what a TPA, like a good example on the TPA front and the record keeper front. I think you've probably got many different ones there, and also really the retirement plan advisor front.
Sure. So and I'm going to add a 4th one at the end. I'll talk about integrations in
Value add.
TPAs work in extreme detail. They are often the folks that people look to for complex, messy, hard situations, for really hands-on, detailed customer service. TPAs, there's certain segments of the market that TPAs dominate for a reason. And there, TPAs are under constant cost pressures, but also there's recruiting costs and everything. So the use cases there is everything from onboarding an old plan or a new plan. There's different discussions I'll leave out of that from there, to onboarding plans, transitioning document systems, transitioning when you do M&A. There's so much merger and acquisition work you see, and bringing over books of business. Those are just a few of them. Also, there's the sales side. The sales teams need to rely on the technical team sometimes to understand plans. So there's just a whole bunch right there as an example. Pivoting to the big record keepers. They have a lot of legacy systems. Many of them are a result of M&A or various roll-ups where they have different data sets. And they're trying to figure out how to operate their businesses more efficiently. Knowing what some are doing, I'm not going to say that much more on the record keepers, but I think the key is they all have some very interesting use cases here that go with some of the same things as the TPAs, but they've got broader things because they have call centers to deal with and other things like that. And PlanPort is being used in some ways to help support those services. I'll leave it at that.
I would think that anybody with a call center, this tool could be such an automatic, valuable resource because they're getting calls from clients or plan sponsors for a reason. And they could probably get a very accurate answer quickly. It could help support that call center person be an expert.
That's exactly it. And that goes into the advisor space. I think you just teed it up. Thank you perfectly for me. In the advisor space, that's even more so. We know the advisor world has evolved and morphed. The wealth and retirement convergence. And everybody has a different view on that. I'm not picking a horse in that world. But some advisors are very in the weeds and dealing with participants and having to give things. So whether from their sales cycle or whether to their actual ongoing activities where they might have a call center to support just general advice or distribution advice, we have folks who are using PlanPort in ways that allow them to facilitate that as well. So that's exactly what it is, because once you have the data and there's different approaches to it, that allows you to make your calls more efficient, save time and resources. Our goal has always been to keep it simple, keep it cheap, and make it pay for itself.
Yeah, that's cool. One of the things that I've heard, I went to a very large TPA summit where we were speaking, and, kind of in the hallways and at lunch, one of the major pinch points for them, but wasn't actually talked about in the forum, was just staffing and replacing staff, and the difficulty of finding great staff, and that the industry isn't attracting staff like it used to. You probably have examples there where maybe you're helping solve.
Yes. As I've said all along, and you can hear my theme, like there's a lot of talk that does AI replace humans? Can in some cases, but there's a role of the human subject matter experts have great value here. And in the TPA space, many TPAs, especially if you're smaller, may have one or two people. Some of the big ones have many more people. Full want to acknowledge that. And what happens if they decide they want to slow down, retire? It's hard sometimes for recruiting. Or what if you just start scaling up your TPA? The folks who do this are very, very good and have they add great value to your firms. I'm the first to say it. When I do demos, I long expected that these folks would be the people most sort of negative on PlanPort. And sometimes people, I understand, they're like, well, is this going to replace me? And my response is, it's not supposed to. It's supposed to allow you to do more. The idea is, if you can use us and then make it so that you can be the reviewer rather than having someone else having to spend even more time. And there's other features of PlanPort that allow people for like onboarding and other types of activities to make it even easier for folks. But we're not designing a plan. We're about the plan data. That's the key takeaway.
Right. I think one of the things that's a real big misnomer for folks that don't use Gen AI or don't use it regularly is it's a turbo booster for people that are subject matter experts, because you are in control. You need to lead the conversation, frame it, know what output should be, and check it. And for those people that have been in the business and really understand the task that they're working on, it just makes them so much more efficient, but they're still ultimately responsible. And for those that, I'll give you an example. So we were working on a study for Retire Tech, and we used some college interns. They're presidential scholars. They're like the smartest of the smart interns. Our industry is so full of acronyms, and it's so difficult to understand that no matter what AI we threw at them, until they're a month or two in, they had a very difficult time navigating, because it's just a foreign language in some cases. And in other cases, it's not just pure raw IQ.
I wholeheartly agree. Our industry, that's why I started with, it's a very, very people-driven space. And my view, and take my advice for what it's worth as someone who's running a business with about 10 people at this point, my take on it is AI is an incredible tool, and I think it adds real value. There's a lot of questions about data usage, training models, stuff like that. And whenever I talk to someone who's thinking about us, what they often say, are you going to train on my data? I'm like, no, I don't. It's in our contract for a reason. But
if anybody knows contracts, I think David Levine knows contracts.
Well, part of our business model was designed underneath it all to recognize people's data is important to them. We don't want any personally identifiable information. We want nowhere near that. That's not our business.
Right.
But at the same time, AI can be very, very helpful. I'll tell a story on this. One day I had to put together a slide deck, and for fun, I had AI try to write. I gave it a very long set of prompting where I sort of said, this is what I want it to be. This is what I want it to look like.
Yeah.
It wrote me a deck, and it was 50% wrong. And this was one of the really good models.
Yeah.
But it really was great as a first framework to help me organize it.
Right.
And that's why the human matters, because I was able to do that. We are far more accurate than 50%. I know that. But at the same time, it shows you that, especially with the recruiting challenges, to go back to your comment from being in the hallway at that conference.
Yeah.
The challenge, you're right, to build that subject knowledge, sometimes there may not be as large of a pipeline, but there's, especially as you see the small market plans continue to grow and they'll start moving around more and more with automatic enrollment and all these changes. And that's one of the things I love about this is the broad knowledge base. You get to talk to people who know so much, and it's not just tech.
Right.
But that broad knowledge base, AI can be a very helpful sort of starting platform if used well. But you have to embrace that AI makes mistakes. I sometimes jokingly say AI is dumb and stupid. It's not dumb, it's not stupid, it's not human. But what it is it is flawed sometimes.
Right.
So to me, in terms of building a business, it's finding ways to guardrail it and do everything. If it was as simple as just take a document and have, ChatGPT, break it all out, I wouldn't have a business. But there's a lot more to it than that. And that's the key.
So I want to go back to a couple different comments you've made along the way. But before I do that, you mentioned there were 4 things, because I said 3: TPAs, record keepers, and advisors. So give me the 4th.
The 4th is something I've already touched on. It's partnering. I always thought from the beginning we would wind up partnering, but I kind of call it the Intel Inside discussion. Because if you want to build what we have, it can be done. It'll cost you a lot of money, and it will probably be, as I jokingly say, item number 742 on your tech priority list. Like, it's a small little piece that adds value, but there's so many other things in an IT priority. That's why I focused here, because I thought there was a need. But I realized that unless you do it at scale, it doesn't really, actually, it's hard to pay for itself. So as a result, the other area that I've seen a lot more interested is use cases. People who have different software, different solutions. Like, I'm about data and helping people through their process. But we have tools and other things, but we're not building the next great record keeping system or pension administration system or CRM. I'm not building Salesforce, because there already is a Salesforce. I'm building something that can, I've built something that can, built something that can integrate into these systems. Right. And the partnering, whether it's through our customers and their other software to make sure it can feed directly in, because that's one of our big focus items. We've built solutions that can take you almost anywhere. And the partnering for people who are like, the more and more discussions I've been having with folks about, hey, I want to build something. Can you help us give us this portion as your engine? And my response is yes. So the partnering interest and the growth of it, especially, we launched right in the second quarter of this year. Basically, that's when we really launched at this point. And the partnering interest has really taken off in recent months, and it's been great, and really enjoy the collaboration. So it's a completely different channel. And how people plug us in, that's the one I won't get super weedy on, because everybody has their own business model, and I respect it. All I can say is I don't want to do their business model. I'm just here to help.
Right. So it seems to me that you have this really interesting, defined in many ways, middleware model, because you're not trying to replace any system. You're really turbocharging and connecting all these disparate systems and creating output that just makes people better at their job, whatever that job might be. So in essence, would you call yourself really a software firm that has harnessed kind of some of the superpowers of Gen AI, or how would you characterize your firm?
It's interesting. I had a long talk about this just recently with a good friend. In some ways, we're a consulting firm because we consult and support our clients. Sure. In some ways, we're just a technology middleware, just in quotes. We're a technology middleware. In some ways, we're an agentic firm because we do have what I would consider to be agents doing what we do.
Yeah.
So if you ask, what do I think we are? I think you said it best. We are middleware that can do this much or it can do this much. Like we build tools inside. They're designed to allow people to get to their end goals. The key is, for some people, the key on this is, if you notice, I don't mention plan sponsors. Like I have had a plan sponsor ask me, "Oh, can I run your plan through?" I'm like, "Sure, I'll just do it for you." But we're very much, if you were going to go back to the old internet parlance, a B2B company. We're not we're not talking to participants. We're not talking to beneficiaries. We're not really even talking to plan sponsors. That's not what we do.
Right.
What we do is we are very much a technology company that leverages industry knowledge with people on both on the subject matter substance technical and on the technical side with programmers. You put the two together and we create a technological solution that does leverage AI. But AI, as I said in the beginning, is a part, not the be all end all.
And again, what I think is interesting is, as a tech firm, you're not trying to go in and replace different tech systems. You're trying to
help
connect to and take the output from those systems and just help the company operate better, which is the people side, right?
It is. And that's the thing. I think my personal view of this is I am not going to build record keeping system, administration system like A, administration system B. That's just not that's a very big lift. And I respect those who have done it and are continuing to do it. But I also realized we live in a world of outsourcing. And let's go back to the retirement industry generally. Yes, some record keepers will do small sum cash out IRAs themselves, and notably big ones, with full respect for those. But many of them have outsourced to the small group of firms that specialize in cash out IRAs. And similarly, if you look at domestic relations orders, this is where my wonky legal side comes in. Sure, as lawyers, can we do them? Sure. Can you do them in-house? Sure. But there are vendors who specialize in reviewing domestic relations orders for 401k plans and do a great job, and they're efficient. And I look to that mold of those folks who can provide that specialty outsourcing and do it at scale, almost like a utility.
Yeah.
And that's how I've envisioned us fitting in. Utility sometimes has different connotations, but to me, it means we make it easier for people to go do what they want to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. I want to just change gears slightly. A lot of people that dial into this are other new ventures that are trying to find success, and getting to market, getting meetings, getting the third and fourth meeting, getting to contract is really hard. That's generally what we spend almost all our time on at KWP, right? Is making that faster and more effective. Mm-hmm. As a CEO of a new venture, and you've got some really nice traction now and some really nice successes, talk to the audience about what you've learned running a new venture, because you also have consulted as an attorney and advisor to these large entities for a long time. So talk about that story a little bit. What lessons might you pass on? What have you kind of realized being a small guy trying to connect to other medium, small, and very large enterprises?
There's a couple pieces. Years ago, in my legal career, I had a wonderful coach she was amazing. And a word, because I guess as a lawyer, it happened, that stuck with me probably more than anything else from coaching, is the word hubris. Self-entitlement, oversense of self. I think humility in doing this and recognizing that suddenly, especially for me, I know what my day job is, and I know what I do at Groom in a completely different style. But remember, you're coming into a room with people who have established ways. Confidence is important, but don't be overconfident. That's kind of a starting point. Respectful, but you do need to believe. Because we all know in the world that if you don't believe, everybody will say, then what's in it for me? To do that. But number one, that's that. Number two is don't go chasing the shiny penny every time. And it's something that I talk about with my lead engineer very regularly, actually. Our customers give us great input, and we bucket it in different ways. And we work really hard to address it because we really appreciate them and their input, and we want things to be better.
Right.
But one of the things to keep in mind is to know what you can and can't do. You cannot be all things to all people. And every so often we sit down like, all right, here's all the things people have been asking. This is what we think we can do now. This is later. And we try to be honest with people about where our limits lie. So my advice to people is don't get distracted by that shiny penny. Because yes, you need to pivot. You need to adapt. We've added new features and things as people have asked us for stuff, and we're thrilled to do it. And it's great ideas. We can just say thank you to our customers. But putting that aside, you have to be careful not to be pulled chasing the other thing. The last thing is, it's selling when you're a small business is much like dating, or at least it was like my dating when I was single. people are going to say no. And that's okay.
Yeah.
And that's fine, but you have to embrace it. It's sales 101. And I also think a little bit of skepticism. I come as a founder from a slightly different place because this is my industry. And I have great respect for folks in the industry. And I always say there's 2 degrees of separation in the retirement services industry. There really is. So I know a lot of people, so I can talk to people, but really be open to taking input. And it goes back to the hubris comment. Before you go launch and say, my solution's here, buy it, really focus on understanding what your audience actually wants and see what they say. I had some other verticals that I thought PlanPort would be great for. Mm-hmm. I talked to them and they're like, no, not for us. And that's okay.
Yeah.
But I think it's really nailing down how you're going to do it. And if you are newer to this industry, it's hard because getting those meetings, I know they work with you, which is a great thing. It's hard because everybody has limited time and budget. So the keep it simple, stupid approach makes sense. If you were not an easy button, I know the tech build takes a lot of time. If you're going to make it hard, that's hard. And don't overstate. I have seen so many things that people overstate, where they come in and say, we do everything. And the problem is set expectations where they belong. That's just my personal view. Maybe I go too low sometimes because I try not to overpromise.
Yeah.
But that's something that's important to me. You want to do the right thing. Like I put my legal career first and foremost in what I do because the clients, that's my commitment. But it's do that. And one last thing is really to think carefully about, and also remember to use hubris. I could be wrong about all this, just to make that clear. And also use people who are the right experts. I do not practice law in this business. I have my own outside lawyers, and I think it's a good thing. Rick, use your strengths and focus on where your strengths are and figure out where you can leverage other solutions because there's only so much time in the day.
That's really good. I want to summarize it a little bit because there are a lot of good lessons in there.
We could use Gen AI to write that up probably in 10 seconds.
You're going to have Will AI right now for a second and see how I do.
Sounds good.
I think a couple things. One is we often see these early stage firms and it's so hard developing the product and getting to market that they can't help but be very internally focused. And so what we like to do is get the best stuff out of their head and then turn around the mirror to say, what are those audiences really going to care about? What will they find relevant? What will they find compelling? And why will they keep you in the game? And you'll get to the second and third meeting. But then other things are important too, because it is selling and not everybody's a good fit. So if they're not a good fit, it's much better to know right away versus being told to come back later. And then you just keep doing what I call free lunch and learns. Nobody wins with free lunch and learns. I mean, it's okay to do 1 or 2, but, or at least 1, but have a real criteria around, are these people ready to buy? Can they make that decision? Have I given them the information to help them? And again, have I explained my new venture in a way that they can see themselves using it? So it's just turning it from inside out thinking to outside in thinking. And whenever we do that, it's all the best thinkers of the founders, developers, and sales marketing team inside. It's just how to turn it around. I kind of see that as one of the key things. I think what's really interesting is you're walking this balance of being open to what the audience is telling you, maybe deciding if this is a good fit for your tool, and being honest that you can help them or you can't help them. Because in the end, you're going to get into an agreement, you're going to get into a contract, and you're going to want to be able to follow through on it. So you got to be really accurate. I think one of the things that I've heard and that I really like that you said is many of the ongoing existing companies we've talked to when we're at conferences or they call us, and what they're trying to learn from the research we've done is like, who's real? Who's not vaporware? And what can they actually do? Because oftentimes we're in a meeting and they keep saying, well, I can do that. And they might be able to, but can they do it now? And do they really understand what that TPA or record keeper and their systems really need from them? And that's where it's making, I think, the sales cycle a little bit longer because there's an explosion of tech firms and they're all trying to get meetings. And then it's hard for the business side to kind of pull apart what's real and what's not for me at this company or this company, because they're different. Even if there are 3 big companies and they're all in Boston, same zip code, but they're just different.
Yep. I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. And I'll give a classic example. We have a new feature on our platform because I said, getting the data in is just a part of it, and how you work with it is, and a bunch of other features is what we do beyond that.
Yeah.
But the reason I say that is we have a new feature coming on. We're really excited on it. We'll save our customers, we believe, a ton of time, make their lives a lot easier. And we've talked to partners of both at the end, in the middle. There's a lot to it. And we have a new feature that is literally going live as we record this weekend. And we decided actually to pull it. Why? Because we actually, through the kindness of our customers, a number of them gave us some of their time and gave us feedback. And we walked through and asked them what they thought. And we got their feedback. And we had told them we're on schedule for when we had told them to be available. But we actually told them the truth. We said, it works. Here it is. We'll show you. Here it is. And they said, ooh, that's cool. But I'd really like it this way. And I don't think it, from an academic standpoint, what we did is perfect. But from a practical, functional standpoint, they gave us great feedback and would make it much easier and practical for them to use and worth their time.
So that's why you pulled it back?
We pulled it back. Our engineering team is working. We already have the substance. We're reworking some of the pieces here to make it so it's just easier to use to address the specific comments. And we talked to a number of customers about this. We actually queued up meetings to talk to our customers and ask them for their time, and they gave it to us so kindly. So now we've gotten consistent answers. So now we are reworking. That'll be our holiday season project. And the plan is in January, we're now going to roll it out. And that's fine. We have rolled we've rolled features in beta where we openly say, you're going to see a glitch or two, and we own it. Yeah. But we're very clear. We say, this is a beta, and here's why.
Well, and I think that's what's hard for, especially long ongoing enterprises, is that new ventures have a very specific niche and focus that they're good at. And they're not perfect, but it seems like you've really owned that and you understand that. So I'm going to ask you a tough question.
Sure.
I want to flip the script, and I'll ask it 3 ways. So I'll start with, what should a TPA be asking you or any retired tech company that's approached them that seems interesting? What should they be asking you?
There's a couple pieces, and I'll give some specific to AI.
Great.
A TPA should ask you should be asking a TPA, what's your funding and what's your funding horizon? Because here today, gone tomorrow is a risk. Like, I have an answer when people ask me, because I'm very focused on running this like a business and making sure the capital is there and long-term planning. But sometimes it's really a shoestring. Mm-hmm. And if it's a shoestring or it's glued together, that's number one. Number two, I think a good question is, tell me about your people. How you don't need to, you don't need to give a bio on every person, but it's actually understanding, did you just hire an offshore web developer to build you a pretty site on top of ChatGPT? Because that can give you some input as to what is. Offshore developers can be great. I'm not arguing with that. But what I'm saying is, did you just pay someone to build you a site and they're not really there, and you're basically 2 guys in a truck on the front end and nothing more?
It's really kind of a long-term capabilities durability question, isn't it?
Yeah. Number 3, I would definitely ask about, like, and this goes into the record keepers. I see this as well, but I try to be consistent. So if I'm a TPA, I'd be asking about, what's your insurance?
Say more about that. What's your insurance?
Like, we maintain cybersecurity insurance. We maintain E&O insurance.
Sure.
Like, we do that because it's important.
Right.
And if you have someone who is using AI, there's a couple different things to keep in mind. First of all, as I said, we don't touch personally identifiable information. We want nothing to do with it.
Right.
But if you're a TPA and someone wants to touch personally identifiable information, I have a lot of questions to ask. If, like, some of the big record keepers in large institutions have detailed surveys, you can find them online. In fact, ChatGPT could probably write one for you. My idea is, you really should find out exactly what the security is and what's there and what's the remedies. Also, that goes into contractors and everything like that. Number 2, are you the product? we all have long said that on Facebook and Instagram, and TikTok, you are the product. In AI, you can be the product as well. We contractually agree, we don't train on your data. We don't train models, but some people do. And some people will say to you, oh, we'll follow applicable laws. The problem is there aren't that many applicable laws. So find out, are you the product? And in some cases, if you're a little bit of the product, it may be fine. It's not in my business, but it could be. But it's important to ask that. That's my TPA questions.
Got it. How about from an advisor standpoint?
From an advisor standpoint, admittedly, you're going to hear me repeat myself a little bit over and over. It's a lot of the same, to be very honest with you. I think it's the same. It's the same questions. If you get to larger institutions, whether advisor, TPA, or record keeper, you get into things like single sign-on and a whole bunch of other stuff that you need to support as well. But it's those types of items that they're the big questions to ask.
So as we sort of land this plane, if you look ahead in the next 3 to 5 years, you have a whole range of great clients. What do you think they're going to be doing differently having used PlanPort?
Well, some I know, and I'm not allowed to tell, so I'm trying to think how I say this.
If you can't say it, then you can't say it. I'll come up.
I think that they will be finding, I think I'll go with a very macro response. I think as we run into a world where a lot of the great subject matter experts, and there's a great generation behind, I do not want to put anybody down, but as the number of people in the industry retire, I've long referred to the phrase I coined years ago is the ERISA generation. The people who were in the field in this area in the 70s, and I've expanded it to the early 80s. Many are retired. Most are retiring some point in the not too distant future. Not that I'm trying to push anybody out, because their knowledge is invaluable. But as you lose those folks, it gets harder and harder sometimes to build the same cadre that you have today. So I think you will see people using our solution and to really make it so they can be more efficient, as there are fewer people available to do this. I think they will be able to use it for more personalization, which I know is another theme of the industry at this point. I think they'll be able to use it also to provide more support at scale, which right now has historically been difficult because of the time it takes to really work your way through materials and documents. So I think that there's a lot of options there. I also think there's options for them in terms of add-on services that they can use the data for as they go forward.
That's awesome. As we bring this to a close, is there any final thought that you want to leave with our audience today?
Well, first I'll say thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
That's fun.
And I know I yammer, so thank you for having me. My takeaway is technology, for those of you who are skeptical of technology, you're right. Because, Will, you said it best, there's a lot of vaporware out there. Technology, but we all are. I saw a presentation by a journalist in the tech industry many years ago. And it was a conference that had nothing to do with the retirement industry. And she made the comment, and she was excellent, that, that we are all cyborgs. And in some ways we are. If I ask anybody, when's the last time they called 411 or 555-1212 for a phone number? Nobody can remember. And if you can, I'm impressed. Nothing wrong with you call it. We now just type it into our phone. People don't remember phone numbers. So even if you don't like technology or are concerned or afraid, and that's okay, fear is normal. I have fear too at times. I think for you, my takeaway is figuring out how to use it and embrace it as an additive rather than assuming it's just will replace us. There's so much talk about technology will replace us. And I think things are never as good as they think people say it is, or as bad. And for those of you who are technology fanboys, fangirls, fan men, fan women, my response on that is great. But I also think we do ourselves the best service by acknowledging that technology has value, but also has limitations, and that people really matter. Because no matter what industry you're in, whether you're a technology company, whether you're a consultant, whether you're a record keeper, TPA, whether you're a lawyer, there's a role for technology. But there is the human element has value. And some people will tell me I'm wrong, and I'm okay with that too.
That's awesome. What a great way to close. Well, thank you, David, for joining me today and walking through your thinking behind PlanPort, running a new company, and how it can help the industry. Your perspective, both from the ERISA legal side and a founder, brings a rare level of depth that I hope our audience will really take some notes and think through carefully. And it's exciting to see what you're doing across all these different stakeholders. And I love your formula of you're not there to replace systems, you're there to just help make it work better and help those people that are ultimately on the front lines do the best that they can. At KWP Growth Partners, we partner with emerging ventures and established firms alike, helping them become enterprise ready, launch new products, and grow with clarity and confidence. If this conversation sparked ideas for your business, we'd love to connect. If you enjoyed the episode, please listen, like, and share it with your colleagues and friends. And until next time, we wish you the best in creating value for participants, employers, advisors, and the entire ecosystem, as we just want the industry to get better and better. Thank you for being with us on Decoding Growth.
Decoding Growth is more than a podcast. It's a lens on what's next. If today's episode sparked something, join the conversation. Subscribe, share, and connect with us at kwpworks.com. Until next time, keep building what matters.